Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So, how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 265. And today I have as our special guest, Ellie Steinbrink. She is a branding expert and stylist for women entrepreneurs. At the intersection of psychology and personal branding, she empowers women to take bold action and look amazing while doing it. She started her business Style Decoded to help women define and embody a magnetic personal style that encourages them to color outside the lines in their lives and in their businesses. Ellie, welcome to Hustle and Flow.
Thanks. So great to be here.
So, how did you get into branding strategy and styling?
Well, the first 20 years of my career were all in marketing and branding. So every facet of the marketing world that you can imagine. And at one point of getting to the very top of my game in that industry, I realized that this was actually not what I wanted to do, which is a very scary feeling if someone here listening is going through it, or if you remember you've gone through it yourself. But it is a little bit unnerving and it's very vulnerable to think, oh, this is actually not the very thing that I want to do. And this is the goal that I've achieved is not actually what I want to do.
Right.
Long story short, in 2020, there was some job changes there that happened at the point I realized I was not in the right seat of the bus. My ladder was not leaned up against the right building. But in 2020, I ended up losing my job due to the pandemic. And some things had been transpiring before that were piquing my interest about leaning into my passion around style and helping women show up in their fullest, boldest selves. And at the time I lost my job, I had already started to dabble in it. I had already started to create my Instagram account. I was talking about it consistently for over a year, dabbling on the side. And it was the universe's way of, slowly pushing, not slowly, very abruptly pushing me off the
Yeah.
cliff and saying, Ellie, it's your time. But what I think is really interesting, and I think when we look back at the histories of our careers and how we came to be where we are, it's so interesting that the red thread really is, yes, I was doing marketing and branding all for a variety of, Fortune 500 companies or smaller companies, as well as personal brands. And now I love taking that expertise that I've built all those years and putting it into the style work that I'm doing with my clients.
So, share how you think those two come together. Like, what is it about fashion and styling that people can use as an actual asset in their branding,
Mhm.
not just what I'm putting on for any given photo shoot?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that comes to mind for me, especially since I'm working with women who are personal brands. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, you are as well, Heather. You are the face of your brand.
Mhm.
And what we know to be true about branding is, when I think back to the days when I was consulting with companies and they would say, Ellie, how can we differentiate from our competitors? It was never, hey, how can we fit in or look the same as our competitors? It was, we want to sound different. We want to look different. We want to be distinct. And that is our competitive advantage. But somewhere along the way, doing that for a company versus doing it for yourself becomes a little uncomfortable, right? Because there is a tendency that started very early in us to want to fit in. And we want to look like others in our industry. We want to feel safe in knowing that we're going to fit in. But the reality is that creating a brand for yourself requires you to stand out. So the way I see style is not so much in the way of runways and trends and doing what everyone else is doing, but it is finding what is unique about you. How can that tell a story to those who maybe see you, but they don't hear you? When you walk onto a stage, or even as they get to know you, what are your clothes saying as a story, and do they reflect an authentic version of you? And
Mhm.
if not, there's a dissonance there that has to be worked out.
I don't know if you feel like you ever have to do therapy with your clients, but so many of us have so much baggage and so many stories and thoughts wrapped around showing up in a certain way with our style. And it's either love or hate, right? Like
Hmm.
we love fashion, we love clothes, or we hate it. We want to be able to be like the Zuckerbergs of the world and just like throw on a t-shirt and jeans and call it a day. So, how do you like what are the different kinds of things that you hear when clients come to you and how do you help them work through it and see it as something that's an extension of themselves as opposed to like one more thing on their to-do list?
Yeah, there's a lot of goodness in there. So I'm going to start with you sort of mentioned like these stories that we carry with us. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of the women that come to me when we work together, they're often surprised when we start into it does feel a little bit like therapy where we dig into what are some of the things, the rules, the expectations, the beliefs I have around style or my body. And when we
Mm.
start to get curious about that, and I have an exercise I do with my clients, actually I have it available as a worksheet too that I could share with your listeners.
Yeah.
Get curious about what are those things that I'm believing that ultimately are impacting my beliefs now, and also then working to self-sabotage when I am making decisions about what to wear or what to buy when I'm in a shopping environment. So let me just give you an example. I'll give myself as an example. When I was 14, I had two different instances happen to me that made me believe, and both were examples of where I was wearing a mini skirt. Now, my mom would have never let me leave the house in something inappropriately short, but let's just say they were above the knee. And I
Hmm.
had gotten two comments in these different instances that really shook me enough to make me believe, okay, when I wear short skirts, even if it's above the knee, anything above the knee, I feel like it's drawing negative attention. I I want to I want people to see my credibility and how serious and my skills I'm offering. I don't want them just to see the outside and make quick judgments. And so for 30 years, Heather, this is crazy. But until
Yeah.
I started doing this work on myself, I realized that because of that belief that solidified when I was 14 years old, I wasn't buying anything above the knee. I wasn't wearing it. If it somehow happened in my closet, like I had a brave moment in the store, like I'm going to buy this, I would maybe wear it for half of the day and then I would take it off. All because in this one belief that really should have just stuck in that time of my life, but I decided to carry it forward. Now, that's a childhood example, and those come up all the time. But I also see this in our working adult lives too, such as I worked at a corporation. And because of how everyone dressed at the corporation, I really developed a belief that Black is the most professional, or that wearing a blazer is automatically going to give me credibility, or people will take me seriously. And so we glob onto these beliefs. And if you think about these beliefs are coming not only from our workplaces, but from our cultures, from our families, from things kids said on the playground. And when you start to work with someone, when I start to work with someone, and we're trying to develop a style vision for them, there's so many parameters that it's hard to then expand out of that.
Hmm.
So it is surprising for them to realize, oh, I didn't even know I needed to do this work. Well, what can happen is someone hasn't really gone through and become aware of what these beliefs are that are driving their decisions. It will keep them stuck. And when I'll admittedly say, when I first started this business, I didn't realize this yet. And so I started working with women. We would have a quick meetup about, hey, what's your style vision? What are your goals? I would start shopping for them almost right away. And I would have them try on the clothes, and you could almost see, the fear happening. There was a moment of, oh, this is really exciting. But then the thought of, oh, I actually need to go on stage looking like this or walk into a meeting wearing this. And all of a sudden you could just tell them they tensed up.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I realized, oh, there's a step that has to happen here where I'm becoming aware of these rules I've been collected of what rules I'm wanting to hang on to and which ones just no longer apply to my future success. And once we've sorted through that, not that some of these are going to be worked out in a day. I know that's not how it works, but the
Right.
awareness is key so that you can move forward and say, you know what? I can still be professional and wear a color, or I can still be professional and not wear a blazer, or I can still look appropriate and wear a short skirt, or whatever those rules
Right.
are. So these rules tie us and bind us and keep us stuck.
So recently, I'm working on a rebrand, and I was told to wear a blazer for something to be a girl boss. And I was like, I am a boss. I'm like, I am a boss with or without a blazer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Yep.
need a blazer to make me a boss.
Yep.
And it's so interesting how we just buy into these stories without even realizing that we're doing it.
Yep.
And sometimes it feels like a negative, and sometimes it's just like, yeah, it's like we feel forced to do certain things. And so, one of the things that I have been exploring more in my life is creativity. As I
Mm.
said, I've always kind of had this like love hate relationship with fashion and clothing. But when I realized that it could actually be an art form,
Mm.
it felt different. Like
Yeah.
something just clicked in my mind. It felt different and it felt fun. It was almost like, oh, I'm the canvas. And
Yeah.
like I get to paint, I get to play, whether it's my
Yeah.
makeup, my hair, my clothes. Like I can play dress up, you know?
It's interesting you say that because, after I'm done working with clients, I will ask for their feedback or we'll be chatting about it. And one of the most common things they'll tell me is going into my closet is fun again. And I really do think there's a number of different factors contributing to that, but
Yeah.
the freedom of letting things go in your closet that you don't really love, but you feel like you have to have, or maybe things in your closet that you hope you will fit into one day, but they're kind of secretly haunting you every time you walk into your closet. Or even just saying, I'm ready to embrace the fact that I don't want to wear a blazer to be a girl boss. There's a freedom in that acceptance, and it's a bold choice. And I understand that when a woman is making this choice to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what I want, it does feel very vulnerable because it's the most visible aspect of you. And
Mhm.
it's the most easily judged part about you. But it's also the most freeing. So if you can get over the hump of, you know, all of these things that are holding you back and just embracing, you know what, this is who I am. And I can still be in my full energy, be even more in my energy when I step into what I love. That's the secret right there.
Yeah. So your color outside the lines philosophy, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How do you help not just because I'm sure you kind of see the shifts when you are really working on how you want to show up, whether it's on stage or for a photo shoot or just the way you show up in your everyday interactions,
Yeah.
how your styling can actually help you be bolder and color outside the lines more.
Yeah. Color outside the lines has great meaning for me because it is a mantra that my mom would always tell to me. My mom is an artist
Ah.
and she has her own story with that mantra, but she always used to write on every card that she ever gave me. My mom's an artist, and on the back of the painting, she would always write color outside the lines.
Oh.
And what to me, yeah, so it's very meaningful to me. What it means to me is we don't have to do things the way everybody else does things.
Mhm.
And how that actually shows up when I work with a client, I have a really great client story I can share that will illustrate this very well. It was a woman who had worked in a corporate environment, had worked in that environment for many years and decided she was going to go out on her own and run her own business. And in her own business, she would be working with very large companies and corporations and consulting. And she knew that she wanted to present in a very professional way. And when we started to work together, the reason we started working together because she had a headshot for her brand and she wanted to nail it. But of course, the way in which I work, I was like, we're not just going to solve for the headshot. We're actually going to we're going to dig in here and we're really going to define your style. But one of the things she said to me is, I have this really fun, vibrant, girly personality. Think like she loves Coco Chanel or just the vibe of Coco Chanel,
Yeah.
like very girly, pearls and bows and colors and pink. And she said, I feel like when I walk into a client meeting, I'm worried that presenting in that way will not give me the credibility that I'm looking for, or maybe they won't take me seriously, or they'll, think I'm just a bunch of fluff. And I think this is what we get wrong is that we make assumptions that if everyone just looks a certain way and we color inside the lines and do what's expected of us, that is going to be more attractive or give us more success. When the reality is that showing up in a more authentic way changes us energetically and also lets other people see who you are and attracts the right opportunities to you. I actually came across this really great research recently because I'm such a big proponent of authenticity. And my question was, I knew that showing up authentically changes your business, it changes the success of your business, but I had never actually seen research around it.
Mhm.
So research was provided or was done by Eleanor Beaton, who is a consultant for seven-figure CEO, female CEOs. And she had said their research actually proves that when you show up more authentically in your personal brand, it increases trust, which I'm thinking about the time in which we're living and the amount of trust you need to have in order for someone to sign on with you as a client is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Increases trust. The second thing is that it reduces the time to purchase. Again, so if you've got a higher ticket value item, you know how long that sales cycle can be.
Yeah.
And the third thing is that it can increase retention. So Heather, I was elated because it was finally all these things I knew intuitively that helped to push your brand and your business forward. Showing up as yourself is actually the best thing you can do for yourself. But to end that client story, she said, what I would normally do is I would get real bold and like maybe have a really fun top that I would wear, but then I always felt like I had to pair it with a black pair of pants.
Hmm.
And so we started to work together and I said, we're going to lean into what your actual style personality is. We're going to lean into that girl, that powerful girly. And guess what? You can have both. You can have professionalism and credibility. And as a result, you're going to show up, that much more in integrity, in alignment, and that will show through in the way you're showing up in those business meetings. So she trusted me. We did it. And she's like, it's such a weight off my shoulders, and guess what? My clients still love me. No one, has lost credibility or trust in who I am. It's actually just made it so much easier.
I love that you shared that. So when I'm working with clients and helping them, grow their businesses, it's so interesting how often they will bring me something. So I'm big on like you have to know your brand personality so that
Hmm.
like when they actually go to like start acting like another brand, I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, but part of the reason why is I think it's clients know when you are not being authentic. It's just
Hmm.
part of our intuition. But they can't tell you why. And so something just feels off, but they
Yep.
don't know why. And I see this all the time right now with AI. And so they'll bring me something and I'm like,
Mm.
did AI write this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't no judgment in using AI, but it has to sound if it doesn't have your personality in it, it's
Hmm.
not going to resonate the same way. And it's exactly what you're saying. The
Yeah.
more you can show up 100% with your personality, your energy, clients feel that and they trust that without being able to explain why.
Exactly. I think there's an easiness because I can feel it in my clients. There's a performance that is happening when you're working. So like even if you just think about going into your closet on an even morning, and a lot of us struggle with that decision of what to wear. And I will often say it's because think about the number of things that are going, the parameters that are in your head as you're getting dressed. You're thinking about, okay, where am I going? What's the dress code for this place? And what are the other people going to be wearing? And oh, there's so many things cluttering up our mind as opposed to the question of what would make me feel the best? What is a
Mm,
color that makes me feel energized as opposed to I know if I wear red, it commands a certain energy,
right.
or black means this, or green means this, or I'm going to wear these colors because my color analysis says so.
I was
What
just about
change?
to ask you about that. Yes.
What changes you? And I think what we're missing is we kind of look outward in to define our style. So we look at style influencers, we look at trends, we look at the hottest things of the season, we look at other women maybe in our space that are on stage or doing what we're doing, and we look outside in. So I'm asking, we want to look inside out. And it is more difficult because sometimes you don't have a template to start with. It feels a
Hmm.
little scarier, but it does result in a more realistic and honest impression.
Hmm.
And it's worth the work every time. And it's so fun. And sometimes people say, well, when you work with a stylist, are you just going to start looking like the stylist? And I think that is the worst possible thing that could happen. What I'm trying to do is let every woman shine in their own unique way and be able to stand out there confidently and say, I feel so amazing in this. because I know it's unique to me and it's a stamp that only I can have on this
Right.
world.
Right.
But you asked about color analysis. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Because I mean, it's all the rage and I'm constantly getting ads for it. And yeah, I'm just curious, like when you were going through your examples of of the closet, it's
Yes.
like, am I allowed to wear this color because I was told it's a warm and I'm a cool, and what do I do with that? How do you feel about color charts and color analysis? Like, can you go beyond
I
that? Like, what are your recommendations?
I have a love-hate relationship with it. And I will
Yeah.
say I do color analysis with my clients. So I am not someone who is a complete don't ever do it. However, I think it's a danger zone. So what I mean is that I did get my colors done about 5 years ago, and it was incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
I'm someone who was always like a black and gray girl, what I wore from a professional standpoint. And then I got my colors and realized, oh, in fact, I'm not supposed to be wearing black and gray and white, although I am, you will know I'm wearing white today. So it was fun to be able to learn that and understand, oh, like maybe it did help me explore and
Hmm.
try some of the colors that maybe I'm actually someone being the daughter of an artist. I love all colors. So I was never shy of color anyway, but browns like I'm wearing today or rust colors or some that I just hadn't ever gravitated towards that I did learn in the process. But here's
Yeah.
what can happen. When we go to the extreme of getting our colors done, while it can be a helpful guide, it is not the single indicator of your style. And that's what I see it turning into. So when I think about style, I think about colors that change you energetically. So that may or may not be the same as what's on your color card. I think about textures, I think about silhouettes, I think about aesthetics. But what color analysis can do, it can be hyper focused on one aspect of your style, which is color. And so when I see women like throwing everything out as a result, like, oh, my card says don't wear that, even with handbags and accessories and shoes, where it's like if it doesn't match my color card perfectly, it's getting thrown out. When you find yourselves going to that extremes, you've known you've gone down a rabbit hole. I am always a proponent of wearing colors that are going to warm up your face, but your personal opinion about what you love is still the most important. So
Hmm.
I have women who have gotten their color analysis, and I actually intentionally will ask them, what are your favorite colors? When you think about the woman you're becoming, what color is she wearing? What colors change how you feel? Start paying attention. When I put on a certain color, does it make me feel a certain way? I intentionally will ask them those questions and explore before they get their color results. And sometimes what they tell me they love and what their color results show, they are not the same. And they worry, oh no, what am I going to do with this now? There's always a way to strategically incorporate colors into your style, even if they aren't your best colors. So, for example, I am a warm tone and I like many colors that are bright and cool. And I will not stop wearing them, but I just know how to strategically put them into my outfit. Maybe it comes in a shoe or an accessory, or maybe that color is in my on the bottom half as opposed to the top half. Or like today, yes, I'm wearing white, but I've got a color that it does warm up my skin paired with it. There's always strategically a way around it, but we don't want to lose our personal opinion in the matter because that's where we become a little robotic, you know? And
Yes.
I don't think we need to go to those extremes. And I want women to come back to trusting themselves in what they love. And that's again where we've been told so many things about how we should be or what we should look like as a mom, what we should look like as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, as a woman in her 30s, in her 40s. There's so many shoulds that I want us to come back to trusting ourselves. And that includes what colors we love.
It reminds me of painting. So I said I was I've been exploring creativity. And so I've started painting. And when I started, I would be like, what are the techniques? How do I do this? Right? I just
Mm,
wanted to know all the information. And my
yeah.
instructors were always just like, just paint. Like, just find out, right? Like, find out what happens when you mix those two colors. Right.
Hmm.
And it was so interesting in that there are certain, it kind of in my mind feels like the color analysis, there
Yes.
are certain techniques that you will learn can really support you and help you. And
Hmm.
they're kind of rules for a reason. But once you know them and you really just lean into your intuition and playing and your
Yeah.
personality, you also learn how to break them in a way that feels good to you. and
A
you're
hundred
still pleased
percent.
with the outcome. And that's what
Yeah.
that sounds like
And
you're saying.
And the same would be true in how I teach, which silhouettes work best on your particular
Hmm.
body type, because that's a part of something I teach to all my clients. And it is usually a life-changing experience where we struggle so much with our clothes and we don't realize that just different silhouettes can work easier on different body types than others. And when we try to ship shape ourselves into the latest trend, it may not suit our particular body type. So that's another point where it's a tool. It's a tool then you get to pick and choose from, just like the color analysis. It doesn't mean you have to follow it, blindly, but it's a starting point, it's a base for you then to build upon and start to have fun with, just like you're painting. I love that analogy. That's perfect.
Yes. Okay, so earlier you mentioned that you had a free worksheet. So,
Yes,
do you want to share a little bit more about that in case anyone wants to go grab it?
absolutely. It's called the style mindset reset. And when I was talking before about when we're ready, when you feel you're ready for a style change, like you walk into your closet and you look and nothing feels like it resonates anymore, instead of your knee-jerk reaction of just immediately going to shopping, because shopping and retail environments are very tempting and can really be very distracting. And then you end up with an even more stuffed closet that you still don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
What I want you to do is start with the style mindset reset, which when I was talking about rules before, it's going to help you start to think and brainstorm what are some of these rules that I didn't even know I was hanging on to. And I'm just going to warn everyone that if you end up with a list of 20, that is completely normal. When I do this work myself, I find there have been a lot of rules that either my mom told me how to dress, or my particular family structure, or the culture in which I lived in Iowa, and the culture I live in now, and the circle of friends I have now. These rules and beliefs can come from almost anywhere. So it's going to help
Yeah.
you brainstorm. It's going to help you just become aware and rewrite your beliefs into something that is much more positive and supportive of the future you.
The link will be in the show notes. Check it out. And you have a new podcast.
I do. It is called The Visibility Shift. And everything you're hearing here is what I talk about over there. And I'm passionate not just about telling you, in fact, you will never hear me tell which jeans to buy this fall, or what's trending. It is more about, as a leader, how can your style support you and bring the best of you out in any scenario?
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been such a pleasure. Everyone, you can check the show notes for both the podcast as well as the free download. See you next week. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.